How do you balance between the immediate and the future in your position?
Well, I think the biggest thing is quote I always go by is bloom where you're planted. I think when your team goals are all accomplished, your personal goals align with it. So that's my biggest thing, is being the high, efficiency operator and what I'm currently doing, help us build the culture, help us turn the team around, and then from there, everything else aligns.
How can you describe your role, like what you're tasked to do in this role?
Yeah, so the biggest word I actually use is football solutions, where it's overseeing the pro personnel department, the college scouting department, and also just being the checks and balances with Joe on the football operations side. So for me, it's just creating synergy through all of our supporting departments and then our primary scouting departments.
With there was no scouting director, college scouting director, is that correct?
Correct.
So is that fall on you more so than it would have, if you had one?
No, so I think when you look at any scouting department, there's no right or wrong way how you put it together. I think with us, our biggest thing was people, process, culture. We had an extensive interview process, and we like what we came together with. Between Tim McDonald, who's already been here, Dennis Hickey, who we brought in, Chris Rossetti on the pro side, we figured we had the right department heads in place to get what we needed to get done, just from a B to Y standpoint of process through it, and then also just putting the scouting together. Process the way we want it to be done. So I think there's different ways to skin a cat, and that's why we wanted to put it together.
How much different is what you're being asked to do here compared to maybe what you were being asked to do in Philadelphia?
There's a lot of carryover. I think the biggest difference here is no scouting department is the same. So I say working with Joe is going to be different working with Howie or working with any other general manager. So I just think being a checks and balances to what he needs on the daily, that's the biggest difference.
Was it difficult to go within the division? I know maybe that's not a preferred, like if you're Philadelphia, they probably don't want you to go to the, tell the Giants how they're operating. So is that a tricky one?
No, I don't say it's tricky. I look at between Howie Roseman, Jeffrey Lurie, like those are guys that are going to be friends for life, regardless of football. So I don't think it's something that's difficult going within the division. I think we're competitors, and regardless if I was outside the division, outside of the conference, it would be no different. But those are relationships I'll always have.
Brandon, how much are you watching the other teams right now during training camp? Because obviously 2 weeks, 2 weeks to go, you'll waiver deadline, you'll be pretty active, I imagine, the Giants. So how much are you watching like the other teams' preseason games right now?
No, I'm knee deep in it right now. I think between the AFC, NFC, getting the first week of games done, and obviously you have the Hall of Fame game, which gives you a double dip there, and then getting to week 2, that's kicked off week 3 kicked off last night, and then getting to that final week, it's an ever evolving process where every stone has to be unturned. You want to make sure that you're dotting, your I's, crossing your T's, whether it's position of need, whether it's creating competition at all levels. You got to know what the marketplace is, whether we're looking or not. You got to know what's out there. So that's what I'm doing.
Is that how you guys do split it up, AFC, NFC?
No, I'm just talking about just the league as a whole.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if that's how you guys. One guy watches the NFC, one guy watches the AFC game.
No, but Chris Rossetti, our pro director, he's really spearheading the process in terms of having the pro scouts be assigned teams, and then obviously you have Tim McDonald, myself, Joe involved as well. Being over the top guys, and that's how we're kind of skinning the cat. But it's a really collaborative process. Everyone has a voice, and that's the biggest thing that Joe has really empowered us with.
How hard is it to do what you do and know the team has no money to really sign guys who might be let go?
Got to get creative, and this is the thing. No one's going to feel bad for us. So, just biggest thing is you got to get creative, and during these type of pressure situations, I think that's where talent rises to the top in terms of identifying it and just knowing what plays and what upgrades the roster. But that's where I'm at. I don't feel like there's something that where you feel bad for yourself. Just constantly looking, and you got to get creative in terms of how to put the puzzle together.
Brandon, when you scout players, what do you look for?
Biggest thing first is guys that are smart, tough, and dependable. And when I say smart, you got guys that are instinctive, guys that regardless of their physical traits, their assignment sound, they're not having busts. When I say tough, guys that are finishing off plays, guys that are competing on special teams. When you talk about dependable, guys are available too. Guys that have a known track record of not missing time. Guys that, whether it's offense, defense, special teams, they answer the bell on all 3 phases or all 2 phases, whatever they're asked to play. So that's the ground layer, and then obviously it's the skill set, the attributes, the athleticism, the speed, the explosiveness, all the things, the size, the length, all all those things that come together from the physical tools along with the the mental components.
Would you have said smart, tough, and dependable last year, or is that Dave's influence on? Those are his 3 words all the time. So, like, is that you meshing with them, or was that something you believed in at this time last year?
That was the beauty of coming here. Was that's something Joe, Dave, myself, we've been aligned on. Now, obviously, you put that into a quote tag, a smart, tough, and dependable aligns. But in terms of talking about process, how to build a roster, those are all the things that we primarily agreed on before I even came here.
Why do you think a smart football player is important out there? Why being smart football-wise is important?
Listen, you can have all the physical tools you want. If you don't know your assignment, you can't get on the field. If you don't know your assignment, you can't be trusted. So I think you talk about being smart, knowing your assignment, also being able to react quickly, pick up things quickly. You can't be trusted. If you're not trustworthy, you can't play.
Why do you think you and Joe are so in sync? What qualities do you share? But also, is there part of it that you don't overlap, and that there are things that you can learn from him that maybe aren't considered necessarily your strengths, or what you would consider your strengths are in this position?
Yeah, I think he's someone that I've always admired from afar. We've been on the road together in the past. Just knowing that how he's a tireless worker, he beats every bush for information. He goes the extra mile in terms of evaluating players. I see a lot of his traits in myself, and that's why we've always gotten along with not being in the same building, but being in the league and being on school calls or being at college games. Just seeing the way each other's work, it's always been admiration from afar. So that's something that drawn me to him.
How much are you going to be on the road this fall doing live college scouting? Are you going to be every week? Are you going to go to practices? How do you have that game planned?
Yeah, I think there's going to be a mixture of both, being in the building and on the road. One is being in the building is knowing the temperature of the building, what the roster is like, also knowing the landscape of the league currently. Then obviously being on the road, knowing what that next crop is going to look like. So I am going to balance that. Every week is going to be a little bit different, just depending on what our needs are. But there's going to be a steady balance of practice, games, and also being in the building.
What you were obviously on the other side for the last 5 years, wearing green. What did you think of the Giants? They were in your division. You beat them, fairly regularly. What did you think of the team before you came here?
Yeah, well, I think the history of this franchise is something that I've always respected. I think the platform that's here, if you're a true competitor, you want to be in the most high-pressure situations. That's what this organization is. I've always had high respect for ownership, and then knowing that Dabes and Joe were here, guys that I've respected from afar and know their work ethic and their pedigree, it made it something that was very attractive. And I just think there's a lot of tools in place to do great things here. It's just that we just got to keep working and keep progressing.
You guys, we asked you about what you look for in players, but the quarterback position in specific, I'm sure you guys, are going to be looking at that this offseason. I mean, throughout the spring, actually, because you don't have a quarterback signed past this year, right? Your starter is not signed past this year. So I'm wondering, what do you sort of look at specifically for that position, skill-wise maybe, or physical traits?
Yeah, I think, when you look at how you're going to put the quarterback together, one, it's knowing what our system calls for, right? So that's getting, really the player description from Dabes, and then obviously it's all the attributes that go into it. Whether it's anticipation, whether it's arm strength, whether it's ability to play outside the pocket, ability to throw and make plays off schedule. All those things come into the evaluation of the player, and also the person. What they are, how they prepare, how they practice, how they're viewed in the building. I think regardless of quarterback, but all positions, those are things that we do. We get the player description from the call it the coaching staff, and we go out and get the groceries. So regardless of quarterback, running back, other positions, offensive line, defensive line, corners, there's no different approach.
You're working off a checklist created by the coaches?
Say it again?
You're working off a checklist created by the coaches?
There's not a checklist. It's a collaborative approach, right? You don't jam a square peg in a round hole.
Yeah.
Then you get, that's how you build a bad roster. What you want to do is you want to make sure it's a collaborative effort based on what the job description is, and you evaluate the talent. And the coaches aren't on the road; they don't know the marketplace. That's why it's a collaborative process, and then you get the best results when you put both those together. Between what does the system call for, what can the player do, and what is the year 1 versus year 3 end of the contract in our system.
You talk about the history of the franchise. Do you think there's some foundational pieces here, some players that you can build around as you go forward here?
I do. I think we have foundational foundational pieces that we like, and I think at the same time, we're constantly trying to create competition. You know, that's I think where you get iron sharpens iron, where you have pretty much at every position or at most positions, you want to make sure that you have guys that can push each other, whether it's front end or back end. You know, that's really how you get the best out of guys, especially on the daily. No one gets lax. Everyone's also always giving their effort.